Victoria. It's so nice to see you again.
Same, good to see you.
How's your day going?
All right. How about you?
It's going well. It's really good to see you. So I thought we would just start by recapping like some of the things we discussed in the last two simulations, and then we'll just go over some things, and then we can go from there. So last session, you disclosed to me that you were diagnosed with HIV, and this was something you contracted through physical intimacy with your last partner, and you and him are no longer talking. And then just 2 weeks after you received this diagnosis, your best friend Zach asked you if you would take your friendship to a next level relationship. Zach knows just about everything in your life, but you have not informed him about your diagnosis. This is only something your best friend Chio knows. Your mom's involved in your life, and you haven't disclosed this with her. Sorry, okay. So we talked about how Zach is a really good friend, and he encompasses a lot of good qualities, but this diagnosis is making you hesitant about going further with him, and you're not sure why. And you'd like to explore why the things of your past are making you confused about the present. Additionally, you're working as a waitress 3 to 4 nights a week, which comes with tiring shifts, and this can be stressful, but the income is good for the time being. Okay, great. So trying to do a quick takeaway. Is there anything else that I'm missing?
Not quite wrong.
Okay. Is there anything you walked away from the last session that's been on your mind or you want to talk about?
No, not more than it has been. Everything that I told you, you kind of have it all neatly summarized.
Okay, great. And is there anything that's come up this week that's been stressful for you or changed your mood?
No, I think I'm just getting a little worn down. So.
Yeah, of course, that's understanding. I guess how would you say this week is compared to the last week?
I think Zach is getting impatient. Max feeling stressful. Excuse me, but besides that, it's nothing super tangible, honestly, that I can think of at the moment.
Yeah. So you and Zach have been in contact, you're saying, in the last week?
We usually get together at least once a month before that anyway.
Okay.
Before him asking about things, so yeah, we just kind of maintained that. He expressed that he was getting. He didn't say impatient, but I felt like he is.
Sure. Okay. Got it. Okay, great. So I just want to acknowledge that also, you talked about how the last few weeks have really been a whirlwind of emotions, and, that's really resonated with me, and I think you're just really strong and resilient because dealing with, you've been unpacking from the last relationship and now this, I can tell, there's a lot on your mind. And so I think that something we could just talk about is, addressing the situation you have, and that will really help you. So I think something we could do is talk about this conversation with Zach, because I think that will ultimately get you to where you want to be with this therapy session. So is that something you're willing to talk about now? Okay, great. Okay, so I think we could try to outline a plan for this and where this would take place and everything. So the first thing we could think about is now that I think that you've talked about the stressors and the things that are in your mind and all your feelings, and you're ready to talk to Zach, where do you think this conversation could take place, and what would be a good time for you?
The conversation with Zach?
Yeah, do you feel like you're ready for this? Is there anything on your mind really holding you back?
Yeah, I mean, you told me I don't know how to go about telling him about this. That's
Sure.
the main thing holding me back.
Right.
I'm not really sure how he's going to respond to it, and I don't know if I'm really ready for it to be a negative response.
Right. And so a lot of those negative feelings probably come from you feeling anxious because you just went through with a past relationship, right? And so it's probably hard. You feel like anticipating having to cope with something else. Is that correct?
It's not really about him. It's,
Okay.
I'm still struggling to wrap my head around what this means for my life.
Okay.
So,
Sure.
yeah, it's nothing to do with him, really.
Okay. Are there any other negative thoughts you want to talk about that are just really holding you back from this conversation before we could get there?
Nothing that I can call to mind, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I mainly came here with the hopes to figure out how to have this conversation. Or
Sure.
at least figure out why I feel so apprehensive about telling that.
Mhm. Okay. Um, do you think that it would be best to start with kind of telling this to Zach, maybe starting with your family? Is there some way you would want to start with that?
No, I mean, I told Gio, and I've
Right.
told people who I feel comfortable and like know and would understand, and like I have no question if they would respond to it well.
Sure.
I've talked to them already. It's just
Right.
this is different. This is like somebody's trying to be a partner, and this
Of course.
would be a very hard thing for me to wrap my head around if it wasn't happening to me, and I was trying to court somebody. So
Right. Okay. Do you feel like you and Zach have really talked about like the intent? Like, what does he really want? I mean, he obviously wants to turn a friendship into something, maybe for physical reasons, maybe because he feels strongly about you. Is that a conversation you've already had?
he just told me that he cared about me and wanted to explore being more than a friend because the feelings there have been that for him for a while now.
Right. Okay. Well, I think if you want to get to a place where you can have this conversation, then it might be good to make a plan for like when would be good, like what would be a place that wouldn't be stressful, so you could talk about it with him. Though, you could always like make a plan, and then if it gets to a point where you don't feel comfortable, you could like again we could in the next session talk about like what's holding you back. So, would you be willing to like walk through maybe like that conversation itself?
I don't understand why we have to do, like, why is that the solution you land on for
Okay.
what I'm telling you?
Sure. So what would you want to be the goal of this?
Well, no, I'm just curious. I mean,
Oh,
I told
sure.
you a couple times I don't really know how, but
Yes.
planning when and where the conversation is going to happen
Mhm.
doesn't really help me understand the apprehension I have.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that like in the past sessions we talked about some of your family history, things you've been dealing with, like why is Zach so important to you, and so I was thinking that would lead us to like how we could actually, because one of the things you've said is like Zach's impatient, you kind of want to get to there. So I thought sometimes it's easier to actually like have the conversation with someone else before you have it in real life and like real time. So I just thought maybe like that was something you could do with me because like I'm not actually Zach. Sometimes like I've found with other clients they really like to just like talk about the space and the environment because that plays a lot into their feelings. But again, like everyone's different, and so that's something like you can define for yourself as well. So we don't have, we can talk about the actual conversation, we don't have to talk about when, where, like that is totally up to you.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
nothing about that sounded good to me.
okay, sure. Okay, so would you want to just like go through the conversation or walk me through like how you would start it or anything?
I was hoping you could help me with that aspect.
Sure, okay, yeah. I mean, I think that like I can I think that maybe like as your therapist, like I'm not there always with Zach to give you the words, but I could try to help you like find a direction. So we could try to do that together. Okay, sure. So let's see. I think when we first talk about like there are different ways that this could go with Zach, and so there are like different. I just want to we talk about like the different ways that it could go. So last time we talked about like we did the cognitive model of like ways he could react to it. So there was like the I'm okay with this, the like I'm not okay with being physically intimate because of what you have, and then the like I don't want to be friends with you at all. So we could talk about also like what would be your coping mechanisms to have in place if the conversation doesn't go well. So yeah, we could talk about like support systems. Do you think there would be like if you could set up someone to have to talk to in case this didn't go well after? Like what would be best for you?
Yeah, Gio is definitely my first go-to.
Okay.
Besides that, I would say David, my mentor, he is a really, really good confidant.
David, your mentor, would be great to talk to.
Yeah, her name is Chiyo.
Thank you. Is there one of the two that you feel more comfortable having, or just either?
Either.
Okay. So these are people you might want to have like available for a phone conversation after this doesn't go well. Okay, great. So something we could say is that like when you decide to have the conversation, like making sure either Chio or David is available or knows that this is taking place for you to be there for your emotional support. Have you thought about like anything in the community, like talking to other people, like about your diagnosis?
What do you mean?
Like such as support groups, like is there anyone else you thought about talking to, like that's maybe going through a similar thing that you like relate to?
Actually, no, I hadn't thought about that. How's that work? How's
Sure.
that different from this?
Yeah, so like such as the Women's Center in Southeastern Michigan, they have girls who get together every week to talk about like people who are dealing with HIV, people who are trying to speak to significant others in relationships. So some people like group therapy, it works for them. They can talk to others who are going through the same thing. So that's just like another thing you could do if you thought that would be helpful.
Something I would consider.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So, is there anything else? I know you've talked about yoga in the past, but maybe something that like makes you calm if you're going back to like a really stressful time if this doesn't work out.
Like sometimes I journal.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that can help?
Yeah, some people use food as therapy. Some people, like again, like to write down their thoughts. For me, I like to go to the gym. That's just me. I mean, some people also cope in bad ways in that they'll not go to work or they won't go to school, and so that's something to also talk about. Like if you think that it could affect your working life or being a waitress, or because you talked about like you're constantly surrounded by people in the restaurant, like you might want to know that like that's something that you'll be facing after as well. So just like knowing that like that's something after as well you might have.
So what happens when people stay home or don't go places?
Yeah, sure. I think that like that can be a result of anxiety and just like feeling mood swings because of the result of this. So that's something I would want to like help you with is that a lot of times like we rely on our relationships to try to get us through those times. So for you, like it's really great you have these two people. If you felt comfortable getting like your family involved eventually, like they could be another support system for you, or perhaps the people in the community. But typically I find like when people build these relationships, like they're the people they can rely on to get them through the hard times. But it can be really hard to find answers. I think what you're going through is really, really normal, and there isn't really like a simple answer for it. It's really hard, and especially when you've been through something like recently, it's hard to bounce back, for sure. Is there anything you like to journal about, just like your feelings or?
Yeah, usually things, my mind is constantly moving, so sometimes it just helps get it out so I can rest.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. Well, I think that helps for kind of a coping. Okay, so then for the conversation, I think there's some ways we could start this with him. You know, some people like to start conversations with like, Zach, because I respect you, or like, Zach, I want to be honest with you. You know, Zach, because you're a friend and you mean so much to me, like depending on how you want to start it, maybe you could give me like a leading sentence and we could start from there.
I think it's going to be important to just like acknowledge his patience
Mm-hmm.
and like the gratitude I have for that.
I think that's great.
Yeah, I think starting with that would be a good idea.
Okay, great. So we could say, like, Zach, I just want to start by saying I appreciate how patient you've been with me since we initially had the conversation. That's great. Is there anything maybe we could pull from that conversation, like something he really unpacked, like a word he used about you, or something he said about you that was meaningful?
I know you're interested in like a romantic relationship. But I've been really hesitant because of some news I got recently.
I've been hesitant. What was that because of?
Some news I got recently.
Okay. Is there anything you want to talk to him about, like about how why he's so important in your life and like you don't want to lose him, or what's the diagnosis?
No, I've told him that a lot of times
He knows,
in the
okay.
past few weeks just to kind of like try to give me some more time.
Right. Great.
It's just like I've been very afraid, very fearful to tell you because it's just really hard. Excuse me. And then kind of go into talking to him about the diagnosis.
Sure. So you said because some news I recently got. Do you want to say like I found out 2 weeks? Do you want to give a timeline of when you found out or anything? Do you want to disclose?
Yeah,
You don't need to.
yes.
Sure. You could just say I found out I contracted HIV. Is that okay to say? HIV.
I would rather say HIV positive.
I'm HIV positive. Or I am HIV positive. And this is something I wanted you to know.
It's just been giving me a lot of reason to pause.
Sure. Okay, great. I mean, you could talk about, since you are HIV positive, like you aren't refrained from having physical intimacy. It's just something, a conversation you have to have. If there's something you want to mention with him.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of implied with the diagnosis.
Sure. Some people,
Yeah.
or don't
Oh.
always know, but
Oh yeah, I mean, just that's
I don't know
what
what it
I
is.
would assume is like an expectation
right.
of being somebody's romantic partner
Yeah.
down the line. So before any of that even comes up,
Sure.
before I even agree to go on a date, it's something I want to tell him.
Yes, of course. Okay. Okay. And I think if there's anything else. I mean, at this point he might already interject. But so we have Zach. I just want to start by saying I appreciate how patient you've been since we initially had the conversation. I know you're interested in a romantic relationship, but I've been hesitant because some news I got recently. I found out I am HIV positive, and it's been giving me reason to pause. That's great. Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna pretend I'm Zach. So let's say Zach says, "Okay, so what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for us?"
It is a disease that attacks white blood cell count and makes you more vulnerable to infection. Fetal time is significantly longer for almost anything. Extremely vulnerable to bacteria and virus. just like a really, and it's medication forever, basically. It's a disease, it's a debilitating infection to have, and it really negatively impacts your general health. I mean, there's a lot of medication out there, so it doesn't really need to be a death sentence, but it does complicate a lot of things. So I would much rather you do some research and figure it out, and then come back to me. We can have a conversation, but that's not something that I want you to take lightly.
Okay, Victoria, I hear you. Is this like something that you think like will be like you can be in a relationship while you have? Like you think I can like be with you while you're dealing with this?
Well, yeah, but it would potentially like you could get infected at any point, and I couldn't stop that. And that's something that I really want you to understand before you try to pursue this.
Okay. Like, you know, I really have emotions for you, so I just want to, like, I don't think those are going to go away. But,
Well, we can talk about that once you've gone and like done a bit of research. I think that that's going to be way more important.
okay, I'm willing to do that because I really care about you. Okay, I think that was really good. That was really good role playing. Awesome. Great. Well, I think that was really good. Do you feel more comfortable now that you've kind of walked through, like, some ways you could get into the conversation?
Yes.
Better.
Approachable.
Okay, great. How do you feel about like maybe talking about this with your mom or anyone in the family? I know your dad isn't very involved, but
I think it's something that's really I don't need to talk to anybody about it
Okay.
until like it's necessary.
sure. Okay, great. Okay, so then let's just see. Like, I'm gonna go through tracking our goals, see if you've met them. So at the beginning of the session, we kind of defined our goal as like you wanted to understand how the past gets to your present. Do you feel like some of the things in your life that are giving you stress you now have more clarity about?
Yes, it was pretty straightforward. It's just work is
Right.
trying emotionally, and I'm feeling very drained regularly, especially after just trying to like cope with the damage that has been done from my previous relationships.
Yeah.
And just noticing the ways I see it impacting
Yeah.
or manifesting in my life is can be very stressful. It feels really unfair.
Mhm.
And the diagnosis and Zach and
Right. All of that.
yeah, all the things.
Did you try journaling this week and just kind of seeing like what gives you the most stress and all of that?
I would probably say work, just because I can't avoid that. Like I need to go to work
Yeah.
for it to be a consistent. Like I know I'm going to come home drained and irritated.
Right.
And my tolerance and patience for all of that is significantly less than it used to be.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Right.
it's like every day it's just worse.
Right. And when you have those really, really bad days, do you feel like how do you end the day?
Usually something to drink to help me like wind down. I get
Yeah.
home so late and I just want to go to sleep, and it's really hard. If I don't do that, then I'm usually up for 2 or 3 hours after. I get home around 3 a.m. sometimes, 4 a.m. So
Right.
it's just like whatever I need to do to get into bed.
Right. And you mentioned that you're working 3 to 4 days a week. So on those days off, are you like doing self-care? Are you doing things for yourself?
Yeah, so my days how I want to on my days off. It's just that their work is just so much.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Let's see, measurable. So tracking the outcomes of your progress. So I think one thing we did today was we actually like really walked through the conversation. So that seems like something to me that is measurable. We talked about journaling, so kind of trying to like understand how stressed you are from different things between the diagnosis, your relationships, and work. Is that something you feel like you want to keep doing in order to understand like the biggest stresses in your life?
What reviewing them?
Yeah, I think what we talked about was like you like to journal, so sometimes that's just like putting it in writing, having it off your mind.
I'm having some really bad abdominal pain, sorry. Journaling does help to see everything. But so yeah, I've been trying to keep that up and it does help a little bit.
Okay. Okay, great. So we'll keep working on the journaling, putting some of her emotions on paper. Thinking through conversations. Okay, so action, what will you do to achieve your goals? So we talked about the conversation. Is this something you think you're going to implement, or?
I mean, I don't really have much more time, so
Yeah.
it was good to kind of run through the possibilities.
Mhm.
I feel like the weight of them has like dissipated by just looking at them or reviewing them.
Right.
Yeah, he's not gonna wait more than like another week or two. So I feel like probably by the next time that me and him get together, we'll probably hash this out.
Okay. So then also that would be, we talked about having the coping in place, so that would also mean making sure when you talk to Zach that either David or Chia would be available. So we're talking to great. Realistic, is your goal achievable? So I guess let's say you feel like you get to the next point with him and you're not ready, you had a really hard week at work or something comes up. What would you do then?
I usually have 4 days off a week.
Mm-hmm.
So usually I have 2 days off in a row.
Yeah.
I usually take 1 day to myself. We usually get together the day after the day to myself.
Okay.
But I don't think that I'm going to belabor it anymore, regardless of how I feel. He deserves to have an answer. He's
Sure.
waited long enough. He's been patient.
Yeah.
So I don't think that I will reject that unless he decides he doesn't want to talk about it anymore.
Great. This is good. I can really tell you're acknowledging your own feelings, other feelings, and that's really impressive. Great. Okay, so focusing on both feelings at stake. And you're also seeing a doctor and doing medication and everything as well.
Yeah, we're figuring out the treatment plan moving forward.
Okay, great. So time oriented. Okay, we talked about that as well. Okay, great. In terms of other goals and stressors and with work, is that something you're looking forward to change? Do you have like a timeline for that?
I sent some applications out to other places. I'm kind of trying to see. I think it's all.
Yeah.
There's no specific timeline for it because of it, like
Sure.
the nature of trying to find another job or something
Yeah.
like that.
That's something on your mind.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Definitely
You're being
trying.
active. Great. Well, I'm really happy you're being active about trying to change these things in your life, and I can tell you're really making improvement. Do you think there's other things in the community you've thought about, maybe like others, whether it's sports or a way to, like an interest you have to meet other people in where you live? Have you thought about that? I mean, I know you have Chio and David, but you talked to him over the phone, so is that maybe, I know you said at the restaurant you sort of meet people, but not really, so.
Well, the restaurant is very emotionally draining.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to have a lot of people I engage with regularly.
Yeah.
I mean, I've met some people at my yoga studio, but I'm pretty content. I have a few friends here and there. And there's like 1 or 2 other friends. They're not quite as close or as deep as me and Chio's friendship, but
Yeah.
they're
You're
good.
fine with it. Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to do a quick mindfulness activity. This is sometimes good just to relax. Let's see. Okay, so we're just going to sit in the chair. You can have your feet on the floor. Okay. So first we'll just close our eyes. And we'll just breathe in and maybe just take like 30 seconds to just think about our day, things in our mind, maybe things that are going well today and our strengths. Okay, and now we're just going to take another 30 seconds and think about anything negative we're feeling and trying to change that negative thought into a positive thought. And then just try to think about that positivity. Okay, in the last 30 seconds, we're just going to think about something we're feeling really grateful for, and something that's made our day really happy. We can breathe from our toes all the way up. Open our eyes. Feeling relaxed? Okay, good. Awesome. Okay, so I think okay, so I guess let's just take a minute to talk about now how we're feeling, maybe something we want to try to do going into the week, something we're feeling after the session.
I feel like the idea of having a conversation isn't quite as heavy, which is nice. Try to maintain journaling.
Yeah.
Just try to have a conversation. Those two things are really, I think, what I can focus on.
Okay, great. Really good. Okay, so just in the last few minutes, I just want to check in and see kind of like how this therapy is going and how you feel our relationship is. So I'm just going to have you fill this out, just so we can check in with each other. Okay, awesome. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Victoria. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you and how this goes. And just know that in case none of your support systems are there when you have this conversation, that you can always reach out to me as well. All right, thanks.